Mark, you told Tom before the season opener Monday, you think this can be an elite level rebounding team. Just why do you believe that? What do they need to do to get there? And are there any like benchmarks, like percentages of offensive missed threes or anything you want to see?
Yeah, we'd like to be a 30% offensive rebounding percentage team. We'd like to be that consistently. And so that's not a bad number for our guys because it doesn't really mean anything. I would love to live in this, if we could be a 14 offensive rebound a game team, it'd be extraordinary. Certainly above 10. We're just not living in that space at all right now. And so that's part of, we didn't really make much progress last game either, but it's something that we're really focused on, and we will make progress. We're just trying to figure out how to get there. But it's very important how we play. It's really important how we play. It gives us staying power and gives us confidence in all the other things we do. Our presence on the offensive glass and our consistency on the defensive glass is really important for us.
What do you expect to see out of Bucknell on Saturday?
Good team, veteran team. 3 seniors, 2 juniors, but more importantly, guys that have been together for a long time. Like you look at their rosters, like 4-year guy, 4-year guy, 4-year guy at Bucknell, which is super cool. It's a real credit to the program and to the staff and to the players. And so we have a veteran group that has played together for a long time, that understands what they're trying to do. They actually run really, really good actions. They get pretty deep into the actions. And have a good sense of what they're doing. I think it's creative stuff. They'll run 3 peels in a row on a pin down, flex, back screen, all of them terminated peels to get to like a Reddick handoff, right? So it's pretty good. They have some explosive scores, really capable backcourt, a big who holds down the middle really, really well, can shoot it. They shoot it from all 5 positions. So a good team. And it'll be another good challenge for us.
Mark, going back to rebounding, I think Bryant had 11 offensive boards. Is there a number you want to keep teams to on that end of the court?
Yeah, you end up with percentages also, ideally, right, if you can live there. But we would definitely like to get just raw numbers, just because box score just looks better. To keep teams under 10 offensive rebounds is probably a bare minimum of acceptabilities, right, to keep teams under 10. And so those are goals that we're working on.
Just now that you've had time to go back, dive a bit more into the film from Wright State. Anything that maybe in the moment didn't strike you as much as it did when watching on film, either positively or negatively, about the way y'all played?
I think the game was pretty straight ahead for us. There's some ways we can grow. I think we didn't adjust to. There were some decisions that they made defensively that we didn't adjust to on the fly very well. That we didn't see it and feel it, and then when we talked about it, we still were a little slow to kind of adjust to what we were seeing. And so, I'd like me to be better at that. I'd like our staff to be better, and certainly our players to kind of feel that out more quickly, more efficiently. But it was pretty much what we saw.
Sounds like you could have to defend for long periods of time against this Bucknell team, not the whole position. What have you seen in terms of discipline to be able to defend for a whole 30 seconds from your team?
Well, I don't actually feel that way from Bucknell. They have been, they've put a huge emphasis here on playing faster. They're trying to push in transition. It's a ball leader transition where they're really trying to bounce the ball down the floor really quick and then make plays for teammates. And when I say get deep in actions, I'm not really saying deep into the clock as much as I am deep into like their second or third action, but they're happening really fast. So this is not a team that's going to be, we would all say a Princeton team that is going to just milk it. They don't feel like that at all.
How comforting is it to have a guy like Kobe sitting on the bench at the beginning of the game, knowing whether you start slow or fast, and you've got this guy that can come in and maybe light it up?
Yeah, we feel that way about our whole roster, right? It's a great feeling as a coach that you actually have guys coming in that are going to attack in different ways, but they're going to be really, really potent, right? And so speaking of Kobe specifically, if your elite level shooters aren't making shots early, you have a guy coming off the bench is the best shooter in college basketball. It's pretty fun, right? That's a good scenario. But he's adding so much to the game also. He was a 2-steal guy game last had two steals last game. He was really good off the bounce. He was really good off the bounce. Had a great baseline blind cut where he was getting some action away from the ball, punishing defenses for kind of loading. So he's contributing to the game in a lot of different ways that are meaningful. And of course, making shots is fun too.
Mark, you've got a veteran team and yet in another sense of the word, a newcomer. That said, how much game slippage was there going into the first quarter?
Yeah, we've had a lot of game slippage, which is expected. I actually felt like I was really proud of how the guys started the game. I thought we started the game with unbelievable focus and energy and exactly the right amount of force. It wasn't overly emotional. It was still really, really intentional, but it was incredibly physical and intentional. That's probably my favorite word right now, right? And then, at various points of the game, we had massive slippage. We had slippage in communication. We had slippage in decision making. We had slippage in execution. We had slippage in our reads. We had slippage in our energy, which is that's pretty normal and natural, and it's going to be a determining factor of our team of how successful we can be as we limit that. And that's not unique to us. That's universal.
What do you mean by intention?
It's a feel. It's a good question. I'm not going to give you a great answer. It's a feel where you're actually seeing the game. You're communicating the game with your teammates. You're doing it with unbelievable force where you're not getting stood up by physicality, but you're actually getting to where you need to go, when you need to get there, how you need to get there, regardless of what's happening. And still, with all of that kind of force of the game, still being able to read and make decisions on the fly. I thought that first group, man, was really good. I thought they were really terrific in the first few minutes of the game.
How do you identify unselfishness when you're recruiting? Is that something that you see on film or see watching guys in person, or is it something you got to really talk to them and people around them to know?
Yeah, unselfishness is a complicated thing. Sometimes, and what I say is it's almost a little bit of unselfishness may manifest itself in games different for different people depending on their skill set and their role, right? And so, as we're trying to recruit guys, it's very important to us to recruit guys that understand, that have some concept that there's actually something bigger than themselves, that's going to be more meaningful in their life than just serving themselves. And that sounds, when I say the words, it sounds pretty trite and maybe a little bit raw, but it's actually growing increasingly rare. Just with the environment that we grow up in, right? If you think about it, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, there would have been some embarrassment about taking a selfie, right? Just the word itself is when I was growing up, you'd be like, man, what's wrong with you? Like, that's weird to take a picture just of yourself. Like it wasn't even in your lexicon of concepts, right? And now it's just a standard part of the way we live, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just so different, right? And so much of our life right now is focused on kind of it's very much internal, and there's not really that external vibe that is actually where all the magic happens in life, I think. The magic is about connection, and the magic is about building something together, and so when I say that this idea of is this somebody that understands that there's something bigger than themselves, they can actually find more meaning in their own life by being outward focused. That's probably important. Now, diagnosing that, I don't have a Rorschach test that's going to tell me that exactly, so it's very much a feel right now for us, but that's really important to us, and so we think about, usually people that can see something outside of themselves, somebody that understands sacrifice, making something sacred by the cost of it, and And so my three things that I always think about are sacrifice. Can they sacrifice? Is there something bigger than themselves, and they don't understand a standard? Do they understand a standard? Do they have lines in their life that are like, I won't cross that line. Like, I won't do it. Like a boundary that is self-imposed. Like, hey, I have a standard in my life, and this is the expectation. If you find those three guys some way, those three things some way in guys, then you kind of have building blocks for somebody you think, this is a growth mindset person that we're probably going to work with really well, and they're going to fit in our system. Again, these are kind of like 30,000-foot concepts, and so getting them into like hard, fast data is complicated, and we also are changing every single day, right? We're growing, but those three things are things we talk about all the time. We try and diagnose and see.
Mark, you spoke post-game about the defense translating into offense, fast break opportunities, things like that. Could you just dive a little bit deeper into your philosophy when it comes to transition offense? Obviously, you can create offense from your defense, but do you have any specific benchmarks in terms of transition opportunities you're looking for each game?
Yeah, so if we could be over 20% transition possessions, we're pretty happy with that. We'd love to be there during the course of the season. That would put us in pretty rarefied air. It's hard to get there, actually. And so we would like to be in that space if we can. But the game is going to dictate that in a whole bunch of different ways. And we define transition probably a little bit differently than it's defined. A lot of times it'll be defined as like a shot attempt within 8 seconds. For us, our transition can actually extend a little bit longer. Our transition possession can extend even to a secondary action as long as we have kept the team in rotation where they haven't had a chance to kind of get balanced matchups. We'll actually extend the way we evaluate transition possessions a little bit longer.
After the last game, you mentioned Catapult. I was wondering if that's something you brought here, and then kind of what actual data does it tell you, and how does it help you?
Yeah, so you talk about a brain drain. This Catapult deal is unbelievable, and we're just trying to learn. We're trying to actually be very focused on how we use it. So Catapult is pretty much a standard, I think, in most high-level college basketball now. Certainly a standard in the NBA, and so it'll give you measurement on 4 main areas, and then an infinitesimal amount of other areas. But we're spending a lot of time right now obviously talking about our total player load, but it breaks down into jumping load and running load and dynamic load and active load, all kind of focusing on different things. So right now, a couple weeks ago, we were really struggling in the running load part of it because there was so much teaching going on. We had a lot of active load, which so when you get your total load number, you're trying to strive for a total load number on a given day, but a load number that's really heavy in active load, which is kind of all the extraneous stuff, and low in running load and low in dynamic load. A 500 total load in that is way different than a 500 load that's really high in active and dynamic and really low really high in active and running and low in really high in dynamic and running and really low in active, right? And jumping load is surprising, right? It's interesting, we see our jumping load increase when we're doing individual, extended 20 or 30 minute individual workout, and it decreases so much when we're playing, when we're here, they're back, or live scrimmage. And so we're learning about what the numbers mean and kind of using our own data to kind of grow ourselves. But we'd like to be great at this. We'd like to take a really scientific approach to conditioning. Conditioning is a little bit of a limiting factor for us right now. It's a place where we're trying to grow and to be able for guys to be able to play more extended minutes. It's not something we're going to handle in a day or a week. It's something that will grow over the next 2 months. So hopefully by mid-January, we have guys that are kind of reaching their maximum. Hopefully they'll have a 2-month window of staying power, 2.5-month window of staying power, kind of peak performance endurance-wise. And so it's a work in progress. It really is. But it's interesting work. There's so many variables that you almost, it can become a little bit of a mental challenge, but we're digging hard. and it's really important. Like this balance, living in the tension of having unbelievably high level conditioned athletes at the right time of year for the right duration of time in the year, and also doing it in a way where you're giving yourself the best chance to be healthy. I mean, and that's a real thing with the, you're carrying, only a dozen guys on a roster, so the sample size is so small, so one anomaly ruins the numbers completely, right? But we're trying to do the best that it can be done. We have an unbelievable performance team in Randy Towner and Brandon Wells, and they're kind of leading that charge along with our data team.
Mark, there's a certain look to those vets, kind of like a sports bra,
Yeah.
back from the back. What do the players think about all that?
We get varying reviews from the guys. Some guys don't like it, some guys do. But it's an important part of the game right now, and it's pretty universal. It's the standard of basketball, and so there's different ways you can do it. You can use the vest. There's other ways you can pocket, and so we're just trying to play with that also. It's interesting though, but the data actually is, you get different data if it's placed squarely in your chest, if it's placed on your hip, and it's kind of built that way, and so it's the consistency right now that's probably the most important thing for us as we try and see if these numbers can lead us anywhere. You dig into these numbers, sometimes they lead somewhere where it's like, yep, we really rely on this. We use it as part of our decision-making process, and sometimes you go down the road and you're like, this is not the data that is actually serving us well, and we're still in the exploration process.
Mark, in these exhibitions in the opening, the assist turnover ratio you guys have had pretty astounding. Did you think it would look like this from the jump, or do you think it would just take a little more time?
It usually doesn't. We haven't faced pressure teams. We haven't faced teams that are built around turning you over. With that said, a lot of times turnover numbers are it's more on us than it is on our opponent. So I've been really pleased. Our guys have been really focused on protecting the ball. We actually try not to talk about turnovers very much. We talk about protecting the ball, and we talk about it more important than protecting the ball. We talk about how we do it. Like, are you playing with 2 hands, 2 feet? Are you getting driving lines? Are you a KDA guy? Are you winning catches and winning gaps and winning 50-50 balls? And our guys have, so far early in the season, they've done a nice job of like really holding on to those concepts and trying to emphasize them. And hopefully we will. If we're continue. The reason we will continue to do well in the turnover game is because our guys are never, they don't play to not turn the ball over. They're playing to win gaps, right, and to get to 2 feet, and they're playing to make 2-hand plays, and I've been really proud of that actually. What our guys have turned down in our game so far is probably been more special to us than what they've taken.
Couple more. You were obviously teammates with Jason Hart his rookie year in the NBA. What, almost I guess 30 years later, what made you approach him and feel like he would be a really good fit for this guy?
Well, Jay Hart's a no-brainer. He's just finished as a head coach and in the G League. He's one of the, and if he hadn't taken the job with the Ignite, he would be a head coach somewhere else right now. He just was. He's one of those guys that's just on a insane trajectory in this business because he's that good. Like, he is that good. He could be an assistant coach on an NBA bench next year and be a head coach in the NBA 2 years from now. Like, he's that good. He's universally beloved throughout basketball. After I hired him here, NBA team actually came really, really hard after him, and he went through the interview process and just decided it wasn't the right time or situation for him. He is like elite of elite. He's an unbelievable relationship person. He's got an unbelievable basketball IQ. He's a great player developer. He's just in the last 2 years, 7, 9 guys that he's coached that have been drafted in the draft in just 2 years. He kind of covers every single base. He's got incredible integrity. You know exactly where you stand with him. And I'm telling you, he's going to be a He's already been a great head coach, but he's going to be one of those guys, either in the NBA or college ranks, that you're looking at as one of the best coaches in the game. He's really special, and I got to know him playing with him, and he got this incredible juice and joy and kindness, and but also he's a tough competitor, and he's special. I mean, I'm telling you, like, it's going to be fun to watch his trajectory because he's that good.
Coach, you talked about being still to start the season. This is our first opportunity for a high-profile big matchup on Tuesday against
Yeah.
Duke. How do you avoid some of the staying in the moment with Bucknell and avoiding some of that look ahead?
Yeah, so it's something we practice every day. We talk about it. We talk about it before every game. This is the biggest game we've ever played, and so. Two ways. One is it's just the way we go about business. Everybody's human, and so we all can get distracted by all kind of things. We get distracted by things going wrong and things going right and things in the future and things in the past, right? In fact, all of the gravity as an athlete is trying to pull you away from being focused on right now. And so we practice this on a daily basis about, can we just be here right now? And that's going to also be a determining factor in how good we are as a team, is can we be present right now? We talked about being intentional. I felt like the guys were really intentional to start the game, in our opener. And to me, another way to define it is they were actually right. They were fully present in the moment. They weren't distracted by the crowd or the referees or the fans or the other team. They weren't distracted by what happened yesterday or what could happen tomorrow. They were just right there and doing that forcefully. And so we like to practice that all year long. We'd like to practice it in the 27th minute of the game against Bucknell, whether we're up 15 or down 15. We'd like to be present, and we keep reminding ourselves of the power in being present. Maybe more than ever in the world, we're inundated by every conceivable distraction there is. I'm going to give you a long answer because I actually care about this. One of the things we do in shoot around is we'll just have, almost 5 minutes of absolute quiet in terms of any communication. We even had some people in the upper deck that were working at the gym the other day that I asked to please be quiet during those 5 minutes. I think it's probably, for these guys, it's probably the only 5 minutes during their entire week, including sleep, where they're not having any external input. And when you can focus, whether it's by taking away the external input or by blocking it out, and usually it's by both, that's when you have real power to function and to perform at the highest level. And so, when we think about Bucknell and Duke and games down the road and all the things, it's just like, all that's great, it's all real, like we recognize it, but like what we practice is, can we be right here right now having this conversation between you and me? If we can do that, there's a lot of power in that, and that's where we have a chance to perform the best we can.
Well, I had one more that kind of, I think, follows up on this. Is that, as locked in as you are with your team, do you follow at all, like, the scores of other SEC teams and what's going around the country? You couldn't tell, like, who's won and lost?
Yeah, it's one of my big weaknesses. Is I don't have a lot of context. I get really siloed off. What we do is, and that's, I'll hear scores like, like I'm a Yankees fan-ish, light, right? And I actually had no idea what was happening in the baseball playoffs. None, right? I heard the day after, and it just is like that's. And that's actually, I'm not bragging about that. I need to build more context in my life, but one of my skills for good and bad is to be hyper focused on where I am in the moment and kind of what our project is, and that's probably what for me to be successful, that's what's required of me. I think some people are able to take in all the information everywhere and have crazy context and be focused, but that's not really me. So I probably know less about what's happening in the entire sports world than anybody in this room, but I probably know more about what's happening with Kentucky basketball than anybody in this room.